Thank you. His Excellency has addressed many challenges and offered us some way forward. So let's join in the conversation. Who wants to go first? Yes.
Hi. Just wondering, really, in your opinion, what is the biggest political problem? Because if you look at what's been happening in the last 10 years, every scientist would say what's been happening is really, really insufficient. So given that we have the evidence that there is a lot more that needs to be done, what do you think are the biggest problems? Why isn't it happening?
I think I've addressed some of these issues. The biggest problem is that you have a lot of people with different starting points, different responsibilities, different capacities. How do you divide the effort to combat this? I think that's one thing. The other one is a more psychological one. We don't see the consequences. I mean, if we see, I've shown pictures of orchard road being flooded, doesn't necessarily mean there is climate change. And for people tend to confuse climate with the weather. If they look at Chicago in winter, it's very cold. People say, where's the warming? We're talking averages. As I said, 2014 was the warmest year already. So psychologically, for people to see that there is really an urgent need, it's not that clear cut. Politically, how do you go about that? If you're sitting in China, and China has been the economic miracle of the past decades, but still, on average, the GDP per capita is not that high. And you still have hundreds of millions of people who have to go throughout the poverty. The same goes for Africa. So they have to grow. The first responsibility to their citizens is to grow. And growth means using energy. I think we're still not there yet, where you can really have growth without using fossil fuels to feed your growth. So this is as I said, it's a very slow negotiation process. But to see some silver lining is that awareness is growing. And again, to use China as an example, if you look at the impact of growth in China on the environment, if you look at poisoning of the ground, if you look at food problems, if you look at the air quality, they're sure they need to do something. So I think it's a very slow thing. The growing awareness, the psychological people don't always see the problem, and then there's the big political one. How do you divide the cost? How you go back to a taxpayer and explain to him, by 2080 we will have 60 centimeters higher sea level. We need to reduce and this will cost that much. I think that's a big problem. A couple of years ago, one of my jobs was to do coordination within the Belgian context of our position on a previous package of climate and energy. And this was how to negotiate within the European Union who will pay what. So we had this ambition coming to 2020 by 2020. We would have 20% less emissions, 20% better energy efficiency, and we would have 20% renewable energy for renewable sources. How to divide that amongst European Union member states? I think for Denmark was around 30-something percent renewables, for Belgium around 14%. There's a cost. If we have to, in Belgium, we have to lower our emissions. We have a petrochemical industry. How to do that? It took us 2 years to get there. And even then in Belgium the work is not done. Because then you have to divide it amongst all the regions. The Flemish region in the north, and the Walloon region in the south, and Brussels in between. Who will do what? So it's, even if you agree on the eventual target, there's still this give and take, and and difficult negotiations, who will pay for that? And there's a lot of brinkmanship in that. There's a lot of, it's a poker game. We're very bad at that in the European Union. Our cards on the table. We will do 40% by 2030. Others are holding their cards on the table. So we'll see in Paris. And again, this is 2015 to get an agreement by 2020. So we might say there's an urgency because of the climate. The earth is warming. But if you're a negotiator, the spirit negotiator say 2020, way back.
Yeah.
In the 1980s, we have this the Montreal Protocol, where CFC at the time was the one that will kill our atmosphere, going a hole through it. And I believe that we are quite successful in implementing the Montreal Protocol. And today I think the atmosphere is pretty nice. So what is the difference between the Kyoto and then coming to the Paris? Why they differ from the Montreal Protocol that makes us less successful in the carbon reduction?
As I said, I'm less versed in technical and technological aspects of this. As we've learned in a very painful way in Europe, is that to go from fossil fuels to renewable energy is not that easy. Singapore is doing it in a very smart way. It's a market-driven approach to get there. We've been using subsidies to burn the hole in our budget. So it's very expensive, and the technology is not always there. For instance, the big problem with renewable energy is how we store the energy. If I said we connect offshore wind parks between Belgium, Denmark, and in between, it's because of the problem of intermittency. Is when there's wind, you have energy. There's no more wind, you don't have energy. If you don't have a good battery to store it, it's gone. So it's not that easy. Fossil fuels are easy to use. It's easy to store, it's easy to transport. So I think it's still the market incentive. If renewable energy gets very cheap, there's more of a market incentive to go that way. So I think it's part of the explanation is that we're not there yet with renewable energy. We're still very much in the fossil fuel era. And as I said, this trilemma of competitiveness, sustainability, and energy security, if you look at what's happening in the shale gas revolution in the United States, it gives them a competitive advantage over the rest of the world. So there is an incentive to keep using these fossil fuels. And now that the price of petrol is so low, and renewables are still that expensive, it's part technology not there yet, and part market incentives.
Yes.
So can I say that based on what you just said, basically the world is looking for kind of like waiting for something major to happen before we do something drastic in terms of changes?
I hope not.
Yeah, because I mean, like what he said, we have been talking about this for the past, I don't know how many years, right? And I understand what you're saying about, negotiations are slow and they're tedious and there's lots of economic aspects to look at, but it does seem like this is what is needed. That once a major weather phenomenon happens, and that's when we reach the precipice, and then that's when we start thinking about change. Is that what you think is the push needed for?
Well, some people wish this way, and some people vote this way. There's a vote in the country in the United States where they voted there was climate change, but for them there was no man-made. You can just vote it away. That's an exception. By the time we get a major event, it's too late. That's the problem.
So
we cannot really wait psychologically. If there's a crisis, we act. Look at Islamic State. There's a crisis. There's some Western hostages who get killed. We act. you say we need to kill Western hostages to get result on climate change, but psychologically that's it. And some people in some countries are more convinced of this than others, and some generations are more convinced of it. If you're a wrong person in sitting in Singapore or Belgium, this is your future.
In having said that, what is the level of commitment towards or discussion in EU per se with regards to planetary scale intervention, such as pumping sulfur dioxide into the atmosphere or sucking carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere? Has there been large talks?
There's no real discussion on that. The focus of discussion, as I said, is these packages we negotiate within the European Union, which is then our position in climate talks. The earlier package, which we negotiated by 2008, which I was involved in the Belgian side, and then this package we agreed to last year. We need to have a 40% reduction in emissions compared to by 2030, and more even beyond that. So that's really the focus of the European, to get our own homework done in time, and we want to submit by March our INDCs, intended domestically defined, nationally defined contributions, and we hope others will follow suit. I know that in Singapore might be slightly later, but by the middle of the year, Singapore will also put forward its intended contributions. I know all countries do that. The problem we have is that all these together will be assessed as a whole, how they would contribute towards the goal of the 2 degrees centigrade warming. And after that, there's no feedback to countries saying, no, we're not doing that. That's not happening. So this trade-off between level of ambition and the binding nature of individual commitments is something we will see played out in the coming months. In general, I mean, as I explained, I think the European position is quite ambitious on climate change, on the effort we are prepared to do. We would like to see similar commitments from other countries, because we would like to reach that level of 2 degrees, not go beyond that level of warming, in the hope that these small island states will be spared. In that sense, this association of small island states and European Union are natural allies. I think we have very similar position on this. Mitigation is more important than adaptation. Because what is the scope for adaptation for the small island states?
Well, that's the question I'm asking. What does Belgium have a view? Because there are some items that are already pretty much disappeared, people and others.
I'm not clear whether we have a particular position on that. I think we put our money where our mouth is in terms of putting money in the Green Climate Fund,
Right.
which could go towards addressing these problems in those countries. So I think that's the 2 parts of my answer. I cannot be more specific. One, the ambition which we share with the small island states. Second, we think there is a need for money available for adaptation purposes.
Yes.
You mentioned that climate change is actually man-made. So the main cause of the climate change is actually the modern conveniences, like motor car, the factories producing the product for consumption, right? So how much would climate change or reduction of climate change or reduction of greenhouse gases, how much would it affect modern conveniences that we are all so used to? We are living in this modern age, we are so used to air conditioning, motor car, airplane travel. If the countries if all the countries say, okay, reduce greenhouse effect, how much will that affect modern conveniences?
Well, it depends. I mean, you have technological advances. I mean, the car you're maybe driving is not the car your grandfather will be driving in terms of emissions. The house I'm living in Belgium is not the same kind of house my grandfather will be living in. I mean, we have, when we sell our house, we have to have a certificate proving that it answers to some environmental norms in terms of energy efficiency, etc. So there are ways in which we can keep these conveniences, like cars, like houses, like cool houses. And there are other ways to cool houses than using air conditioning all the time. It's a challenge in Singapore, I think. But I understand, like talking to people from HDBs, that the idea is that you should not have air conditioning in HDBs, that there would be a way of natural cooling on your place. So you can have the modern convenience like that with technological changes. But we will have to change maybe some of our things we're doing. Traveling by plane still has quite an impact. Maybe we should start consuming more locally. That's a challenge again in Singapore. But we, for instance, in Belgium, the whole year round, we want to eat mangoes. There's no mangoes in Belgium. Maybe in a couple of years, the global warming continues. Singapore is more of a challenge, but there is a movement among young people that we should buy more locally, follow the seasons. You eat Brussels sprouts in winter. You don't eat in the summer, but the best in winter. So there is, especially among younger generation, there is this willingness to
A follow-on question on what he was asking about. Given your experience with these negotiations, and then I think the way you summarized it beautifully, the political problems, psychological problems, how hopeful are you that we're actually going to get to a solution that will avoid dramatic climate change? Because as scientists say, at the moment we're definitely on the path to 3.6, 4. If we talk 3.6, we talk about 8-9 degrees near the Arctic. So that in itself, I mean, we don't know what the feedback effects are going to be, but the latest study done by a Russian scientist, they said that we already have the negative feedback loop of methane gas escaping from the Arctic now. So it might already be too late. And so there is also no evidence historically that humans have ever been able to avoid a catastrophe that was glaring them in the face. Unfortunately, there is no evidence you'd ever, no kingdom, no big country, no the Easter Island is a prototypical example. So, how hopeful are you?
That's a very good question. I don't know. Talking from my experience, this kind of negotiations goes to the wire. I mean, as I said, this is 2015. To get agreement for 2020 and onwards period. So how confident am I that we will get an ambitious agreement by the end of this year? I'm not very confident. My hope is that we get something with the ambition embedded for 2020. Sufficiently ambitious, but sufficiently flexible to get everybody involved, especially the big emitters or potential emitters like India, to get something more substantial by 2020. Realistically speaking, that would be a good result. Would that be sufficient to go to remain at 2 degrees centigrade rise in temperatures? I don't know. That's the disadvantage of all this science. It's unclear. Predicting the weather we can do in 5 days. Predicting climate for the next years and decades. It's a tough business. So, in terms of negotiations, my expertise is a bit more. I say we might have a good outcome, but what a good outcome is not headlines. You solve the problem once and for all. A good outcome is something that keeps the ambition, but is flexible enough to allow more countries to come on board, and gradually after that get to something meaningful, when this will have been enforced. That's my hope, and quite confident that we might get something like that. But that's a human effort to get an agreement. What the impact of that would be on something we don't control, which is the climate, which is always affects on our planet. I don't know. Back.
Yes, His Excellency, I would like to ask, how do you guide those nations that still dependent on fossil fuel to look at the same direction where we aim at cutting CO2? The reason why I'm asking this question is I feel a big gap between the country where I am from. Actually, I'm from Japan, and then I was in UAE and Qatar and Saudi for a long time. Their main industry is a petrochemical and oil. And Japan is originally a very eco-friendly country. I think Japan did a lot for cutting CO2, while those nations who still dependent on fossil fuel did nothing. So what I want to ask is, how do you, or how do maybe European countries or other key nations guide those countries to reduce the CO2 work in order to get achievable?
It's a tough sell. It's a tough sell, as I said. It's a slow, very slow process of building awareness in those countries. And the perception of the European Union is not always that positive. Except we have ambitious positions, and some people say we're activists and we're too ambitious. We scare the horses. But again, as in the European Union, it's a global level of ambition. 2 degrees centigrade. So you can have a division of the effort globally, where some contribute more than others, but we cannot escape it. Everybody will have to chip in. And there is an outreach from the European Union to talk to all these nations, try to convince them of what was just said. This is going to happen. And if it happens, we all suffer. Refugee problems could get worse. Look at the impact on climate in countries. Look at environmental degradation in some countries. But it's a slow process. And especially convincing those countries that either depend directly from fossil fuels, Saudi Arabia, Gulf nations, Russia, or countries that for their growth depend on fossil fuels.
Any final comments or questions? Yes, the lady there. Yep.
Yeah, I don't know whether there's a concrete timeline for the development of clean energy, those bioenergy or what. Probably there's still a long way to go. Then do you think in between of this period, those pollution, the haze, the polluted water, the air is an inevitable for those super fast developing countries? Like we've seen European countries and US and Japan have experienced this before. Then now we are looking at China, and I think there are still some other super nations along the line, like Brazil, Russia, and Africa. So before we have a practical clean energy to be implemented, do you think those countries still need to go through this?
Yeah, I think China is very much going through this. If you look at the environmental regulation, we just came back from a diplomatic gathering all the thousand vessels, nothing else, and I discussed with my colleagues who serve in China, in Guangzhou, in Shanghai, in Beijing. There's a big problem with food security. It's not sure. The pollution is awful. Beijing, other places, Shanghai. The soil is polluted. So there is this environmental issue. There's also a political angle. What we read, there's a lot of demonstrations and incidents in China. They're very isolated and they're very far between. But if there's one issue that people could gather around and have really an impact on the government, it's environment, because it's a very generalized problem in China. So I think there's an incentive for both those points of view for the government to address this. Whether that is enough to get to the ambitious or meaningful position within the climate division, it's uncertain, but there is a clear national incentive. I think for the government to do something about it. The same if you look at the rainforest in Brazil, maybe there's a growing awareness that you cannot just keep cutting away the rainforest. I think the rate of cutting is decreasing. But I agree, it's a very slow process. In some countries, I'm not sure they would ever get there. In the United States, you can vote that it's not that climate change is not man-made. It's quite remarkable. Well, we think we can do more than God.
You have a final comment? Yeah.
Well, I have another question. Do you think the European Union would ever consider unilaterally imposing a tax on carbon for produced goods? So, because obviously now we have China, the factory of the world, so we're basically we're importing a lot of the pollution that they are producing there. So do you think that the European Union would ever consider a tax like this within WTO, no matter how difficult it would be?
You have different possibilities to address this. The tax is one possibility. We've gone the other route of the emission trade, the cap and trade system, where you cap the emissions at the European level, and then you would give or sell the right to pollute, and that can be traded. It's not been very successful so far. Taxing would be another possibility. The problem is that you would create a competitive disadvantage, which you would do it in your place. And then you would have a phenomenon which we call carbon leakage, is that carbon would leak to other places. So your polluting industry, which still gives importance, you just would not clean up exactly, but would just move to the neighboring country. It's something that's very much on Singapore's mind.
Yeah, but it's not true if you have an import tax on carbon, right? If you say, okay, I'm going to buy, as Belgium, I'm buying from China, I'm buying products there, but we raise an import tax because they're produced in an environmentally unfriendly way. You don't have carbon leakage because you don't incentivize non-European countries to sell to Europe.
We're not discussing that, but I think you can find a way in the WTO article 19 or 20. You can find a way to justify that. But I think it would be easier to have a worldwide system than in the United States. I don't think it's not on the discussion at the moment. It would be an interesting trade dispute with China. One to watch.
Thank you. It's a very complicated topic, but it's very interesting that in this series, every 2 or 3 years, we have a couple of ambassadors who come in and reiterate the importance and significance of climate change and our attentiveness to it. And over the years, I've watched and I've tried to count, for example, the number of universities that have set up departments of climate change or centers for climate change, studying climate change and all of that. Actually, not very different. The last 10 years, not a significant increase, which means that somehow in our universal consciousness, this whole thing is somewhere. We talk about sustainability and all of that, but when it comes to actually doing things about it, we're still a little bit, I suppose, otherwise preoccupied or otherwise engaged. And I think this is going to be carrying on. Even the technology that we use, it's been found contributes so much to the extra sort of heating that's going on all around the world. But again, we are resistant, i.e. we are quite happy to buy new conveniences and buy new technological devices that carry on contributing to our headache. And I mean it in more ways than one. the simple phone we carry is giving people a lot of headaches, literal headaches, ear aches, when they hold it to the thing, breast aches. Women are having increase in breast cancer. Because many of them put their handphones over here and carry it here and there. So all kinds of things are possible, but it's been very, very sobering, Your Excellency, for this. And I was wondering why you chose that as the last slide. I don't know whether this was your diplomatic self coming out in the sense that the jury is still out. Because one of the problems is that when the jury is still out, people go away still thinking that it's not yet time and all of that. But I think in his very diplomatic way, the ambassador has emphasized that if we don't watch out, then the legacy we are leaving the next generation is going to be a very, very problematical one. And on that note, I would like you all to join me in thanking the ambassador for coming here. Thanks, guys.